Welcome to A Guide to Every Deck in EDH. Today we're looking at Rayne Academy Chancellor. So Rayne is a 3-mana mono blue commander. She's a 1/1 that says whenever you or a permanent you control is the target of a spell or ability controlled by one of your opponents, you may draw a card, and if Rayne is enchanted, you may draw another card. So a couple of things to note here is that Rayne herself does not have to be the target. It can be any of our things, and that we get extra cards if Rayne is enchanted. However, the obvious downside of this is that this ability only triggers when our stuff is targeted by opposing spells. So we can't proactively use this. We have to wait for our opponents to cast targeted spells and then hope that they're either already pointed at us or forcefully redirect them. So first of all, if our opponents are casting spells that are targeted, it's very likely that those targeted spells are removal spells, and therefore we don't want our creatures to get killed. So as much as possible, we would like to play creatures that are indestructible or have at least some other way of protecting themselves so they don't die. So cards like Giggling Skitterspike and Darksteel Myrrh will be good creatures to redirect our opponent's spells to. Also remember that we want Rayne to be enchanted, so the best enchantments are going to be the ones that make Rayne unkillable, so cards that grant things like Shroud. That's the majority of them. We also have Vanishing so that we can phase her out. And then in the case of Sisay's Ingenuity, this is just the only aura that I could find for 1 mana that was also a cantrip. Its ability is not really relevant beyond that. It's just a cheap spell that we can enchant Rayne with, draws a card, allows us to draw 2 at a time. We have some card draw here as well, and it's important that as much as possible we have cards that are creatures so that we have creatures to redirect to. And our main win conditions are going to be either drawing our whole deck and then hitting Thassa's Oracle, or using Mind's Dilation to get spells out of our opponent's deck and win with whatever threats we find off of this. We of course have a bunch of counter spells, including things that swerve targets. So Insidious Will, for example, you may choose new targets for target spell. So opponents obviously know if Rayne is in play that if they target our stuff, we're going to draw cards. Therefore, we need ways of swerving their targeted spells that are targeting other opponents' things to our things. A pretty straightforward mono blue mana base. We have some additional protection with things like Hydroelectric Specimen to swerve spells, Misdirection, Willbender, and then Spellskite is probably the best card that we have in terms of redirecting things. A whole bunch of ramp. We want Rayne to get on the field as quickly as possible. Some obvious removal spells here. We're in mono blue, so stacks cards appreciated. And then a number of other cards that were uncategorized for whatever reason. So cards like Kefnet and Thassa, God of the Sea, are some additional indestructible creatures that are good to redirect our opponent's spells to. Mizium Meddler, another redirection effect. And then more redirection effects in Defection, Divert, Metal, Redirect, and Sudden Substitution being another spell that works well with our deck. Another card I thought about was Storm Chaser Drake. So this says whenever it becomes the target of a spell you control, draw a card. So this will trigger off of all of our swerving effects. The reason I ultimately opted not to use this is because if we are swerving stuff to this, again, they're probably removal spells, so this is just going to die anyway. And therefore, sure, we get 1 extra card draw off of it, but what's the point when it's just going to die regardless? Another option is just to have threats that our opponents kind of have to answer to force them to point their removal spells at our cards. So things like Hullbreaker Horror can come in handy in those circumstances as an example. But anyways, with that said, that is going to do it for Rayne Academy Chancellor in EDH.